Okay.
You hear me okay now?
So we have him now, right?
Yep, I think we got Marty. And
Check
he's,
one. I'll check. Hear me, Ken?
can you guys hear that? Okay.
Yes.
Marty's, he's off somewhere on doing something else, so he's gonna have to go first for us.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you can go through if you want to go through the intro and stuff. I thought maybe I'd just go ahead of Tim, if it's okay.
Well,
That sounds good.
Adrian's running late, so if you want, we can do introductions and then you can go ahead and do yours. Is that all right?
That sounds good to me, yeah. The dignitary that I'm waiting for, I think, hasn't even shown up, so I might not be quite as pressed for time as I thought.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Adrian will be here in a minute. We'll start out with introductions. I'm Tim Jacobs. I am Chief of Missoula CERT and Chair of LDPC.
I'm Ken Parks, Deputy Director for Missoula County OEM. Microphone.
I'm Caitlin Nielsen, Emergency Preparedness Coordinator for St. Pat's.
Lieutenant Ben Slater with Missoula Police.
Bob Campbell, Missoula City Council.
Adrian Beck, Missoula Office of Emergency Management.
Corey Hafner, manager of Thatcher Company in Montana.
Karen Hughes, Missoula County Planning, Development, and Sustainability.
Tim LaRoche, Missoula County Wildfire Program. Max Reipoltz, Missoula County Office of Emergency Management.
Allie Kane, Missoula County Climate Action Program.
Chris Clark, the Facilities Security Director at Community Medical Center.
Angela Yance from City Public Works Safety.
Jake Ashbrook, Mountain Lion Chief Safety Officer.
Judy Douglas, Missoula Aging Services. We help out with the information call center when it's up and going.
Jeff Goldsberry, CHS. I'm a INE tech and first responder.
Matt Mill, I'm the terminal supervisor for the CHS pipeline terminal.
TJ Hagemo, Yellowstone Pipeline, Phillips 66.
Hey, James Dodge, Montana Food Bank Network.
Go ahead, John Harrison.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. John Harrison, City Representative.
Tim DeFors.
Yeah, this is Tim DeFors, Missoula County Citizen Representative.
Lois Walsh.
Lois Walsh, Missoula CERT.
Marty Whitmore.
Yeah, hi, Marty Whitmore with the National Weather Service here in Missoula.
Who did I miss? Somebody online. Elisha.
Elisha Buhals, Equity Coordinator for Missoula County.
Elisha. Thank you.
Eric Legbold, Director of Impact, United Way of Missoula County.
Okay.
Everybody.
And now we got R.E. Cornelius.
Hello.
Yeah, all right, all right.
All right. Next thing on the agenda is public comment on anything in the back. Somebody give her the mic.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you all for being a part of this group and for doing the work that you do. I know we're pretty deep into heat season and smoke season is starting up for most of us locally here. And to that effect, I wanted to share that For the last 8 or 9 months, I've been working with representatives from the city and from Climate Smart Missoula to put together an extreme heat toolkit. Those are strategies and some resources for how to implement those strategies for our institutional partners here, so healthcare facilities, Office of Emergency Management, Missoula Public Health. We've got strategies for nonprofits and outreach materials and educational materials for the public and for employees as well. And so I just wanted to share that that's available now on, let's see, climatereadymissoula.org. It's part of our big resilience building effort and initiative. And I'm sure you saw that we also just had Wildfire Smoke Ready Week. And so all of these things, heat and smoke, are top of mind for our community. And I just wanted to share that I had a meeting with some community partners this morning, and they've been receiving a lot of inquiries, calls, incoming questions and concerns about heat and health and smoke, and feeling like things are feeling a bit dire, and a lot of grief and anxiety about climate change. And so I just wanted to elevate those voices and those perspectives. And I'm glad that we're all here working together. And if anyone wants to connect on heat or smoke or health or our communities throughout the county, please come find me. I'm happy to talk and connect and continue to grow this work.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Adrian, you might as well just hang on to that. For those of you just joining us or in the last few minutes, the agenda is going to be a little out of order. Marty's a little pressed for time, so we're going to do approval of the minutes, and then Marty's going to speak. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes that were sent out?
This is Adrian. I'd make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next thing is going to be Marty with our National Weather Service update and fire outlook. Marty, you're on.
All right, thanks, Tim. Are you seeing a satellite on your screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, excellent. Well, commentary earlier was a good segue into what I'm focused on today. No surprise, the heat has been fairly impressive. Even though we're moving into our hottest time of the year, it's still been an anomalously warm pattern for us. So this is a hemispheric look at this big, impressive ridge over the top of us. They're not uncommon in the summer for us. You know, that's what happens as we start to warm up the northern hemisphere. We often get the big Pacific high come up over us. The larger scale that feature is, the more difficult it is to move off. And so it's a pretty stagnant pattern for us right now. The colors that you're seeing are really indicators of moisture. So where it's red and yellow, it's particularly dry. And then blues and greens are a little bit of moisture. So big dominant ridge over us. For the most part, it's actually been, the axis of the ridge has been to our west. So we haven't even really been in the hottest part of the ridge for much of this cycle. I think that's still coming here down the road a little bit. These are so strong, though, that these systems off in the Pacific have a hard time pushing them away. This first one, I think, is just going to kind of get absorbed into the ridge and move up over the top of it. It's really some energy clear out here in Alaska that I think has a chance to drop down and develop a trough that might finally move this ridge off. We'll talk about that in a minute. The other thing you see on this image is some of this moisture that, mostly to our west and south right now. That's sort of a concern under these patterns. It doesn't take a lot in this hot weather to kick off a few high-based thunderstorms. It's hard to tell sometimes if they're going to actually produce lightning or just sort of Virga bombs, if you will, light rain that evaporates before it hits the ground. But we do have some threat of that, and obviously we don't need a whole lot of lightning. I think everybody would agree on that. The focus for most of the month so far has been heat-related messaging out of us, and I know sometimes think maybe we overdo it with the safety tips on heat. because most people feel they know what to do when it's hot, but heat is the biggest weather-related killer, in the country. So, and we've had, I think I saw some traffic of 5 or 6 pediatric-related car heat deaths here in the last month or so, or this month. And so we will continue to hit that probably as it's above normal. And the second message over to the right is sort of an indication that it's not going to die anytime soon. And in fact, as we move into this weekend, it looks like that ridge axis actually moves over the top of us and strengthens. And we will probably see another surge in the temperatures here coming up toward the end of this week. One thing we do is, if I look down at our watch warning advisory map, we don't have anything on it right now. You probably remember we were putting out things like heat advisories and excessive heat warnings. We try to use a tool to do that consistently, and it's called our heat risk product. It was developed here in the Western U.S. Several years ago, but it's just gone national this year. And it's a collaboration between climatological information and CDC health information about when heat spells really start pushing more folks into heat-related illnesses and even deaths, and it's just color-coded into sort of a yellow being minor, all the way up to a purple being extreme, sort of unavoidable type heat situations. And we really are focused on sort of the orange before we start putting out maybe heat advisories, or even into red and purple into the heat warnings. So if I step through that, this is for today. And if I jump to Wednesday, you see that the elevated heat concerns starting to move over this direction. Friday, and then I think particularly Saturday and Sunday, you start even seeing some purples. Not so much in Montana, maybe a pixel here or there, but over in our low elevations of north central Idaho, and we forecast for over there. It's not just the high temperature during the day. In fact, it's almost more important how warm it stays at night. CDC tells us if you can, almost doesn't matter how hot you get during the day, if you can cool off at night, you're not at that much danger or not at that much risk for long-term heat exposure. But if it stays warm at night, it's just tough to get away from. So we'll probably start doing some of those watches or those warnings and advisories this weekend, but it's just almost a subtle change in increased in temperatures this weekend. And then if we go out a little bit farther, this is an 8 to 14 day experimental probabilistic outlook. And you can see it's still hanging on. I think early, this is toward the very end of the month, but I think it's mainly early in this period. The Northern Rockies here under a moderate probability for excessive heat, and then the slight probability extends even a little bit farther. So I just wanted to show that as an indicator how long it's going to last. You can look at the wind hazard too. We do have some concern as that ridge starts to break down at that trough that I mentioned up over Alaska. If that can flatten the ridge, a breakdown of a ridge is a very typical red flag or critical fire weather pattern for us. Of course, how it breaks down is that detail hasn't come into focus yet. It looks like it's just going to probably a flattening of the ridge, which would still give us increased winds. Probably not a ton of relief in temperature, though. It might be from upper 90s or around 100 to low 90s, and probably not a lot of moisture with that either. So that'll be a concern toward the end of this month, or maybe even middle of next week for fire weather scenarios. The other thing I mentioned, that little bit of moisture around for thunderstorm potential. This is from our Storm Prediction Center. This is from tomorrow. This graphic is really supposed to identify where the severe storms, the damaging storms, have the greatest potential. But this light green area does indicate just general thunderstorm coverage. So they kind of see some increased instability over there in eastern Washington, kind of in a weird formation around us, and then southwest Montana. So we'll see. I don't look at this too specifically, maybe blur your eyes a little bit when you're looking at this. So Missoula County might still have a little bit of a threat tomorrow. And then on day 3, which would be Thursday, then it looks like most of western Montana could have some small threat of thunderstorms, and they'll probably be on the high base side or dry type thunderstorms. Let's see what else I picked. If we go then the long-term forecast, it's still going for above normal temperatures and dry conditions. Now, if you notice that these are only updated once a month, so June 20th. So we're just a few days away from this being updated. So I'll be curious to see if this even further strengthens. But either way, it's not really giving us an optimistic picture for relief. I can't see this big ridge holding on through August, but I guess I'm an optimist. The other thing we've been concerned with, and that will play a role in not just health down the surface, but even our forecast of temperature, smoke. There's quite a few fires around. A lot of it's providing this high, kind of mid and high elevation smoke that's going to be pretty transitory and moving through. Then, of course, we have some fires that are producing surface-based smoke. In fact, I think I have the map up here, and I hope I'm not treading on or stealing your thunder, Tim. But there's a lot of different fires around the Northwest. I don't think all of these are still very active. Some of them are a little bit older, but gives you a sense of size. And these interesting colors are the brand new starts. Here's this Texas fire over in Latah County. That's still in our fire weather forecast area, Spokane's public area, but that's got a lot of evacuations over there. I think it's up over 1,200 acres, so that's a big fire of concern. And then, of course, this Miller Peak fire here right near us that we're watching for a variety of reasons. But if we keep, and I think you can see it, just barely. It hasn't been maybe super active today, although we had real poor humidity recoveries last night, so it didn't quiet down completely. But it calmed down a little bit from its Hiroshima look yesterday. And one last thing I was going to show you, we try to model that smoke to help out our air quality partners, DEQ and the county health regulators and stuff like that. And we use this tool called high resolution rapid refresh smoke modeling. And this is what I was looking at. This is from 11 a.m. this morning. And so it looks at satellite information, so it sees where new fires are, sort of predicts how active they'll get into the afternoon, and then what it's going to do with smoke. Now, this is just looking at near surface smoke, so it's not picking up that transitory smoke that I showed you going across north central Idaho. But if we step through, I guess this is about the current time, shows that fire getting pretty active. It's got to end up being problems for I-90 corridor off to our east. And then I starts to notice overnight, the model expects it to kind of lay down over the sapphires and drift down into sort of Missoula Valley southward, up the Bitterroot Valley in the wee hours of the morning. So we'll see how that model does, but there could be some air quality issues here in the valley tomorrow morning without a sustained easterly push, just kind of drainage winds coming down into the valley. So we'll see how that goes. But that'll be something, of course, we'll be watching, as will the county folks and DEQ and Helena throughout the rest of the summer for sure. So anyway, that's about all I have, unless you guys got questions.
Yeah, Marty, I got a question. Did you bring any good news today?
Not for the summer, Tim. No. We are still expected to. We're in a neutral phase when it comes to El Nino and La Nina, and we're expected to transition to a La Nina September and October. Doesn't really say a whole lot about how fire season might end, or any sort of season-ending event or anything like that. Those type of patterns don't really say much about that, but it indicates like maybe a better snowpack for the mountains in particular next winter than what we saw this this past winter. So that's a ways off for good news, but that's about the best I can do.
Thanks, Marty. Does anybody have any questions for Marty? Yes.
Hi, Marty. This is Allie with Missoula County Climate Action. I have a quick question about your, you said you are likely to be putting out some heat advisories this weekend. Are those the advisories that go out directly to people's cell phones, or how do those reach people?
Yeah, they don't, Allie. There's a very limited number of weather service warnings that go to the wireless emergency alerts. And that's the real heavy hitters, like flash flood warnings, tornadoes, blizzards, tsunamis, things like that. So there are third-party apps that will get all of our watch warnings and advisories and get them right to someone's cell phone. Otherwise, they need to be sort of tapped into our website. And then the various media. Media are great partners at extending the message, as are different counties and state and federal agencies help us out. FEMA app has a nice app that'll grab all our highlights, things like that. So, but no, even excessive heat warnings, I don't believe will trigger a wireless emergency alert and go directly to someone's phone with any sort of, alerting, alarming sort of thing.
Gotcha. Thanks, Marty. And so then I remember seeing in the past week some media and social media postings, and I know that here we use Smart 911. Should I be pushing people to sign up there or encouraging that?
Yeah, well, that's always a great thing. I don't, and Adrian and Ken can speak to this more than me. I don't think us probably issuing a heat advisory would warrant a Smart 911 push, especially since we've been in heat for now a couple weeks, but they can correct me if I'm wrong there. But yeah, stay tuned to the websites, follow the weather, the website of your choice, the media of your choice. Social media is great. We push a lot of things out on X and Facebook, and all the media partners are tied into that really well.
Thanks.
You bet.
Does anybody have any other questions for Marty? Well, thanks, Marty, for the presentation. We're all going to go home and be depressed for a couple of months.
Thank you. Appreciate you adjusting the agenda for me. Sorry, Tim, I stepped on you.
That's all right. You're fine, man. Next thing on the agenda is the community preparedness presentation with Tim LaRoche, the Wildfire Program Manager.
Is there a place to stand?
You have to navigate
The wall? All right, all right. So when, who? There we go. Okay. It dawned on me that last time I gave a discussion with the LEPC, I talked about Missoula County's urban avalanche issues, and then we didn't have any avalanches that winter. So last week, when I was putting together these talking points, I thought, well, if I have a discussion with LEPC, we won't have any wildfire issues this summer. We all know how that story ends. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Missoula County's new wildfire program and the grants a couple of grants that we've acquired in the last couple months, and then talk a little bit about our community wildfire protection plan that we're in the process of getting ready to update. So I was hired just over a year ago to help Missoula County build a wildfire program, which would include a fuel reduction component, a preparedness prevention component, and a regulatory code component or planning component. I work directly with Max Rebholz, who's the preparedness coordinator for the Office of Emergency Management. I'm currently located at Lands and Communities, and we're in the process of figuring out the best fit for where Max and I should live, and as we hire a couple of people and start to grow the program, where we should all live as far as an office space and some buildings for storage and equipment and things like that. We've been working with homeowners to take advantage of the current grant funding that Max has acquired for fuel reduction work on private property with a focus on the home ignition zone, as well as taking that opportunity to help homeowners understand the importance of utilizing home hardening techniques and/or building with fire-resistant materials. I've spent an extensive amount of time connecting with our partners throughout Missoula County, creating and nurturing relationships in order to maintain good coordination efforts among all the different agencies and nonprofit organizations that do this kind of work throughout Missoula County. We've started on a fuel reduction project up in Marshall Canyon, which is recently acquired Missoula County property. And that will include pile burning and potential for broadcast burning in coordination with the Forest Service, who owns the surrounding property on that piece of ground. So since the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law, there's been $1 billion designated by the USDA to support communities for fuel reduction projects, building firewise communities, and helping counties create or update their community wildfire protection plans. This past year, we applied for 2 community wildfire defense grants and have been notified an award for both of those. The implementation part of that award is in the amount of $4.8 million to continue to support Max's efforts in our community fuel reduction program and increase our education efforts. Some highlights of that award are that it's a 5-year timeline. We chose to focus on the home ignition zone and low-income communities in Missoula, East Missoula, Bonner, West Riverside, Potomac, and Condon. And so we plan to hire 2 mitigation specialists, one with a primary focus on fuels and one with a primary focus on education, countywide education effort. And then we plan to purchase some equipment to support the Missoula Rural Fire Department's mitigation program, including chainsaws, PPE, as well as a chipper that will be able to utilize countywide for to dispose of chipping materials that have been cut and when burning is not viable. And then a sub-award of our award will go to Swan Valley Connections up in Condon to support their fuel reduction efforts. Funds will be available for residents to participate in fuel reduction projects around their homes in a 75-25 cost share program. So that's 75% the grant pays for and 25% the homeowner pays for. And recently, Max developed a plan to pay the contractors directly the 75% and the homeowners can cover the 25%, and that will alleviate the homeowners from covering the 100% cost and then getting reimbursed the 75%. So we're hoping that we can fit that into the low-income communities and hopefully we can get a lot more interest in the program. So the planning part of the CWDG is for $100,000 to start an update and modernization of our CWPP. So I'll just cover some of what the CWPP is. Formal CWPPs were first adopted in 2003 by the Healthy Forest Restoration Act, which emphasized the need for federal agencies to work collaboratively with communities in the wildland-urban interface to reduce risk from wildfires. The 3 minimum requirements of a CWPP are collaboration between local, state, and federal agencies, prioritized fuel reduction efforts, and recommendations to homeowners and communities to reduce the ignitability of structures. So CWPPs are aligned by the cohesive strategy, which includes creating fire-adapted communities, resilient landscapes, and safe and effective fire response. Our CWPP, which was last updated in 2018, is developed to coordinate with OEM's pre-disaster mitigation plan, Missoula County's growth policy, and other plans such as the Climate Action Plan. We hope to engage as many interested parties as we can and make this update a living document that would allow us to track all the work that is planned throughout the county, ongoing and completed as we go forward, which will make it quite a bit easier to update our CWPP here in the next hopefully 5 years in the future. They have to be updated every 10 years, but the way it's going now, the way climate change is taking place, and there's a lot of new innovative efforts towards fuel reduction and home hardening and building with fire-resistant materials. We're seeing that we have to update those quite more often than every 10 years. It's more like every 5 or so. So we intend to begin this update as soon as we have funding in place, hopefully this fall or early winter. And then I would be remiss by not acknowledging Eric Legvold's participation in our program to help us develop these grants as well as fuel reduction projects in the county. And then I just want to turn it over to Max if you have anything to add about the program.
Yeah, so my name is Max Redpoltz, Wildfire Preparedness Coordinator with Emergency Management. Yeah, just to date, we've historically gotten grants either from FEMA or through the DNRC to treat landowners. And this last year, we received a couple grants to treat lands in the Upper Rattlesnake neighborhood, as well as Patty Canyon. It was about 15 to 20 properties each in those two drainages. And Tim touched on it a little bit, but there's two pieces to preparing communities for wildfires: the home hardening piece and the fuel reduction piece, in addition to some others. And the grants that we get really just kind of focus on the fuel reduction piece, just managing the vegetation, and working with Tim and Eric, as well as a few others. We're trying to explore some more creative financing opportunities to not only do the fuel reduction piece, but also do help homeowners retrofit their homes for wildfires. So that might be replacing wooden roofs or installing metal skirting around their homes, installing 1/8-inch metal screens over their vents, different items like that is what we're looking to do in the future, in addition to our fuel reduction program as well. Cool.
I have a question real quick. So how well is the mitigation inspection thing going on for the residential areas? Are they calling in to have somebody come out and do those inspections for them? And at what rate?
Yeah, so another piece is we, along with the DNRC and the Forest Service and the local fire departments, landowners can request a wildfire risk assessment. A fire professional will go out to that landowner's property, walk them through what they can do on the property to reduce their risk. And then we give them tips and some recommendations and provide that in a written report back to the homeowner. We're seeing an increase in that. However, it's we want more, and we are slowly, as we hire on a couple more people and lean on the CERT and things like that, we're building our capabilities to handle more. But right now, it seems it's at a right size level where we can respond.
Any other questions for Tim or Max? Going once. Thank you, guys. Next thing on the agenda is the pre-disaster mitigation plan update with Adrian.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope that this seemed like the best place to stand, Tim, so thanks for pointing it out. I hope this will be the last time that we can have this on the agenda as an update. So by way of just kind of refreshing everybody, we've been in process of updating our pre-disaster mitigation plan for about the last 12 months. This is a process that we're required to go through every 5 years. It's a way for us to rank and profile that natural hazards that we face specific to Missoula County, and then to identify those mitigation strategies to address that risk. And in order for that plan to be kind of stamped as approved, we have to take it through a couple different iterations of approval. First, we had the county commissioners approve it, and then it went off to FEMA, Region 8, for them to make sure that it met all of the new requirements and that they were capable of approving it as well. We received word from FEMA about 3 weeks ago that our plan had met the approval criteria. And so the last step will be to take it to City Council for their approval. At that time, then the clock starts on our 5-year timeline of getting ready to update it again. But more importantly, it allows us to then apply to some of these grant programs, align it with our CWPP update, align it with some of the work that Ally mentioned with their extreme heat toolkit and extreme heat kind of mitigation strategies, and really start checking things off of those mitigation strategies that we've identified as a community and with our stakeholder agencies, so that we can show that incremental progress towards reducing our risk. So later this month, we will take the plan to City Council and hopefully we'll have that plan approved by August 1st.
Don't go nowhere, because next is emergency alerts this quarter. It's you again.
Excellent. Okay, so this actually was kind of a busy quarter for emergency alerts of a specific type. So we had 9 alerts in the last quarter. A couple of those were just our normal testing that we do with FEMA, with the FEMA IPAWS lab to ensure that our equipment is working and everything else. But we did have a missing female, which generated an initial alert to that geo-targeted area, as well as the cancellation alert once she was located. And then we had 4 law enforcement-centric shelter-in-place orders that were put out through our emergency alert software, Smart 911. Again, geo-targeted to the neighborhoods of impact, and all of those generated an initiation alert to notify people that they needed to shelter in place because of a hazardous, dangerous situation occurring in their neighborhood, and then the cancellation alert that went with it. So.
Thank you, Adrian. Up next is the LEPC Standing Committee updates. IMT Oversight Committee.
No report from the IMT Oversight Committee.
Access and Functional Needs Committee.
Julia Gore could not be here today. She gave me a very brief update in that they did meet earlier this month, kind of in conjunction with when our normally scheduled LEPC meeting would have been, so about 2 weeks ago. They continue to work through their communication strategies for whole community preparedness, specifically working with the disability community, but also trying to determine who's not at the table, and really the promotion of Smart 911, as well as ensuring that we have good participation in a lot of these planning efforts that are going on, whether that's the extreme heat mitigation strategies that have just been coming out, our pre-disaster mitigation plan, the community wildfire protection plan, and eventually our emergency operations plan will go under an update as well.
And the heat team.
No report from them.
All right, you're up again for grants.
Okay, so just going down the list here, Homeland Security grants. At the last quarterly meeting, we mentioned that applications were open. There were 2 applications submitted out of Missoula County. One was submitted by the Sheriff's Department for a ROOK, which is, I'm sure, an acronym of some kind, but I can't remember what it is. But
it's a big thing.
Yeah, it's essentially it's a tactical vehicle used for SWAT and SRT, special response teams, to help protect those individuals that are kind of in those compromised situations where they have a hostage type situation. So multi-purpose vehicle for those purposes. And then the other was a Missoula County application to put in, if you've ever been to a gas station and you see the emergency fuel shutoff buttons, the big red buttons. I like your taste in music. But essentially taking that same kind of concept and putting them in county facilities that would allow for an immediate lockdown of the buildings should an external threat be presented that would enable the county employees to lock down the facilities very quickly. So it's a relatively small grant, but it will pay for helping to secure some of Missoula County's more public facilities in that way. We also have a couple open Homeland Security grants. We continue to slowly, incrementally make progress towards completing the mobile command vehicle. Our timeline right now is we think that we should be able to take delivery of that full paint, all bells and whistles, ready to go by mid-August, but that is still somewhat of a moving target. And then in this last quarter, well, I'll back up. And then the other open Homeland Security grant that we have is the Community CPR Initiative. In early well, in late spring, we went public with Pulse Point, which is an app that will notify individuals who are CPR trained of a cardiac arrest that is occurring in a public place if they happen to be in proximity of that call, with the idea that they could render aid while first responders are responding. So that grant continues to be open. Coupled with that grant is not only the Pulse Point app itself, but also community CPR courses. And so working with our local fire departments and our local ambulance service, conducting and putting on free community CPR courses, the hands-only course, not necessarily going to get a card at the end of it. The idea is just to get the knowledge into our community members' hands. So that continues to be ongoing. And then at the beginning of, let's see, it would be probably January, Missoula County offered to take on 3 separate Homeland Security grants that are for a statewide purpose, but they needed to be hosted by a local entity. So these 3 different awards are all for the same thing, but they just have different periods of performance associated with them. But the idea with this grant funding is that we will be able to promote incident leadership type courses, not only for our first responders, but for some of our critical community stakeholders that may have a role to play in incidents. And so these courses can be anything from your basic ICS courses to more very specific kind of incident command, position-specific incident commander, safety officer, operations section chief types courses. We can't spend all that money in Missoula County as much as we would like to, but we are hosting that grant, and so we do have a unique opportunity to kind of tailor some of those funding dollars to what our community needs are. So we're still in the process of kind of transitioning that grant from its previous owner, and then kind of getting all of the behind-the-scenes logistics figured out to make that statewide, but more to come on that. Okay, going down the list here. We were awarded a rural fire capacity grant from the DNRC. This was a relatively small grant that will enable our office, as many of you know, but maybe all of you don't. The role of the county fire warden lives within the Office of Emergency Management. And so the role of the fire warden and a DES coordinator are very, very similar in that we have a role and responsibility in kind of coordinating local government resources in a response to a threat. And for the fire warden, it's very specific to wildfire. And so we were able to work with the DNRC to get some funding to bolster that response and that capability of that fire warden role. So that looks like, for those of you that are from our first responder community, managing and maintaining the incident qualification system database and record for local government resources. We will be getting a new vehicle that will be somewhat of a duty officer vehicle that will allow for us to have a duty officer program where we can get out to the scene and provide better coordination on some of these emerging wildfire incidents. And then the last one, I'd actually invite Caitlin to talk about it, which is our hazardous materials emergency preparedness grant. Missoula County was the applicant, but we sub-reciprocated that to St. Pat's Hospital.
Awesome. Hello. So I'm Caitlin Nielsen. I'm the Emergency Preparedness Coordinator from St. Pat's. As far as the HMEP grant goes, pretty much the whole goal of this is to, sorry, I'll get in front of the camera. There you go. The whole goal of it is to do some training for our HURT team, which is our hospital emergency response team for a hazardous material incident. Pretty much it's our decon team, and what we're doing with this grant is we're getting equipment for this training exercise. So we are going to be doing a full-scale exercise at the end of August. One of the things with that, we're looking for volunteers currently, and I can kind of go into a little bit more detail with that later during roundtable, but so far with where the grant is, we're coming towards the end of that kind of term and towards that exercise, so we're finishing buying all of our things, getting our team trained. We have a lot of really great new team members from the hospital, and we're also doing another training session to kind of prepare for that. So that is, for the most part, where we're at with that. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Caitlin. Before we do anything else, I want to apologize to the guys on the team meeting. We just now noticed the camera was not on up until now. So they can actually see people now. And I also wanted to back up on Adrian. I've been testing that Pulse Point app, and it is fabulous. And I've tested a lot of emergency apps over the last few years, so I really like that one. Oh, so upcoming trainings or exercises?
Obviously, Caitlin just mentioned what they've got going on for their community, large-scale kind of decon exercise. I would open it up to anybody in the room to announce any trainings or exercises that they have coming up. From our office's perspective, we kind of anticipate that fire season is going to be a thing every year, and so we typically don't have much in the way of on the books for July and August. But as we roll into September, we'll start to announce some of the upcoming trainings that we have.
Thank you, Adrian.
Really quick, just one more. So when I did say that we are going to do a training, so the training that we're doing is the HURT training, which is a hospital emergency response team training. But it is open for everyone. It is a completely free training. It's 2 days. We go over the full FEMA certification. And then we do like kind of a skills half day the next day just to kind of go over some of the technical stuff with that. We open it to absolutely anyone. You do not have to work in a hospital or any sort of medical facility for the training. It is actually really more catered towards non-medical personnel. So that is also open for anyone that's interested. Just kind of let me know. Thanks.
All right. Next up is local and statewide hazmat incidents.
I'm looking at you because you're the only one from fire here, I think. I don't know of any local hazmat incidents or any deployments of the regional team in the last quarter.
All right, thank you, Adrian. So now we're up to the last thing, roundtable and other business.
One thing I will mention for Roundtable, just from our office, I think we mentioned it kind of at its genesis, but we've been working with the University of Montana. They received a CDC grant to do an analysis of 911 call data with what we were classifying as kind of adverse climatological events, and so what that really boils down to is heat. We wanted to really look at smoke, but the years where we had the best data were actually not good smoke years. We intend to look for additional funding and do additional analysis with smoke involved and not just heat. But the purpose was really to test the hypothesis that we see an increase of all call types, whether it's law enforcement or fire medical calls, when we're in prolonged periods of heat. And so the good thing was, or the bad thing, is that this data analysis and this case study really did play that out, and we were able to see an absolute relationship and correlation with temperature and increase in 911 calls. The purpose that we see the most utility with this for is that we will then be able to create somewhat of a heat map, no pun intended, of are there neighborhoods where we're seeing this more disproportionately play out, and then digging a little deeper into that data to get a little bit more granular as to what call types are they. Maybe we can deploy some mitigation strategies in those different neighborhoods to address those needs, but kind of interesting.
You mentioned there were 4 alerts in neighborhoods, and I was wondering, the people that have smart 911, are they the only ones that get the alerts?
Technically, yes. There are those of us that are admins in Smart 911. So, for example, I get every single alert that goes out, and sometimes it's confusing because I'm like, I don't know where the area is, so I have to go in and look to where it is. But yes, people who are registered for Smart 911, and remember that that's tied to your address, not necessarily tied to where you might happen to be at that moment with your phone, right? So for those geo-targeted alerts, it's based on the address that's associated with your phone. So if your address is within that polygon that they've determined is the alert area and it's on, you should get the alert.
Once every the first of the first Monday of every month, and we are teaching older adults tech things, and Smart 911 is one of those, and I just wanted to use that example to convince people, because there's a lot of information that goes into that, and people are resistant, so.
Other updates, roundtable? Now's your opportunity.
I know, now's the chance. All right, last thing for me today. So one more thing just to kind of add in addition to, so there are these little cards on the back table. We are looking for volunteers to be patients during our herd exercise. What that entails is you get a free t-shirt and a free sack lunch afterwards. You come to the exercise, you're given a card with your ailments and injuries from the incident, what you're contaminated with, and then you go through our fun little content, get all wet, get soaped down, and so on and so forth. It is really fun, and especially with how hot it's looking like it's going to be, if you're interested, our exercise is going to be August 29th. There are these little cards on the back table with a QR code. Please sign up and bring your family. Everyone is welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Will it be with ice water?
No.
Oh, then I ain't coming.
I mean, it'll be cold water, it'll be cold water.
Yeah, but how cold?
I guess one question I had, are minors allowed to participate?
Anybody else? Anybody? All right, then I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting for this month. Anybody? Anybody? Okay, we got a motion, got a second. This meeting is adjourned. Our next LEPC meeting will be October 8th, the location of which will be determined, so pay attention to your email. Thanks for coming in.